So, Jonathan, where's our guest? Did we not book anyone? Okay, so what are we going to do? So we're at Ignite. Let's use Copilot. Right, okay, so Copilot, find me the number one person about Microsoft Teams, make sure he's devilishly good looking and amazing, and bring him here. Can we do that?
Copilot said that wasn't available, so send me instead.
Ilya Bukshteyn from Microsoft, thank you for joining me. Amazing show. Thank you. Your session yesterday, standing room only, so we have got the most, because I got in early, but then it was filling up at the sides.
Yeah, we had, I think, 3 or 4 rows deep standing room around the room. They had to shut the doors, which is great because I told the organizers we need a bigger room next time. So, but I actually, in all seriousness, I apologize to folks who couldn't get in. It is available online, and I just appreciate everyone that showed up to hear about what we're doing.
Now, a couple of points I picked up from that. So you aged us all 12 years. Well, and again, you put a LinkedIn post about how long you've been at Microsoft, but 12 years that we've been doing this Teams thing. Could you have imagined back 12 years ago we would be where we are today, and in the penetration that Teams has got into the meeting, 75% of devices using Microsoft Teams calling devices?
Yeah, so it's been 30 years at Microsoft for me, 12 years working in unified communications. When we started...
We need to know your moisturizing technique as well, I mean, clearly.
Come on, I look every year of that. I appreciate the flattery. You can keep it coming. So look, when we started, I remember Gurdeep Singh Paul, Zig Serafin talking about digitizing communications and kind of revolutionizing us away from the standard telephone numbers that have been the way people called into calls, you know, if you remember.
It was SIP and 323, wasn't it? That was the thing. I mean, Polycom and Tandberg, those old traditional.
Let's be clear, that was the domain of the very fortunate and wealthy. Right, those systems.
Big telepresence, 3-screen thing.
Polycom, life size was cheap relative to those. I think at Microsoft we had 10 at its height immersive rooms that were, you had to badge in, and they were for like Steve Ballmer use only. So there was no democratization of video at that time. And I would say, for me, my imagination was limited. When I did the business case for Project Rigel, I talked about getting to 100,000 rooms because the most successful thing we had done before then, which was Roundtable and then Link Room Systems, they were each at about 10,000, and that's where they topped out. So, as you know, we're over 1 million monthly active Teams rooms today. 75% of our enterprise customers use Teams rooms, Teams Phone, and Teams Premium, or all 3 of those in the majority of cases. So I would say my imagination was too limited, but at the same time, it's just, we're so grateful to the vision our leaders had, Brian McDonald for Teams, how Teams resonated as the place people do work today, and then how our customers have looked at Teams Phone, Teams Rooms, and said, yeah, this is the way we're going to digitize and AI power now our communications and collaboration.
It's interesting you use the analogy, and again talking about the old video conferencing systems. I think that the problem they all had is they pitched themselves as the poor man's flight. You know, you could fly to New York, or you could use video conferencing, and you would badge into that room, that dusty old room downstairs. I think what Teams has done is it's made it the experience of a telephone call. It's enhanced the telephone call. You could do it on telephone, but now you can do it on video, and you have that collaborative experience. Rich man's phone call rather than a poor man's flight.
I didn't tell you this, but I apologize to tee up. When I first was asked to take on rooms, Gurdeep and Zig were super impatient. They're like, what are you going to do? And I went dark on them from June till end of August, because I tried to go out, talk to every customer, every partner, Crestron included. I visited Fred Bargetzi at Crestron. And I came back and said, our competition is not Cisco, it's not Polycom, it's actually not Google with the whatever it was back then, the box for meetings. I said our competition's the telephone. 90% of rooms have a telephone, so we have to have an experience that's faster than dialing into a conference call. We have to get people thinking about video as integral. So that was actually, the telephone was, it's still in my paper that I used to pitch Rigel, which initially didn't go over that well. One of our executives walked out of the room really mad, but then he came back and said, okay, you could do this, it's your last shot, which I took as, you're fired if this doesn't fly. So I'm very, very glad it went well.
Nearly 12 years later, it did very, very well.
Yeah, and I think we are now in our third era of democratizing meeting room systems. The first era was getting meetings to start in seconds instead of minutes, as easy as the telephone. I think the second era was getting that video experience as many places as possible, because teams just became inherently, the working team, not our teams, became inherently distributed. And so that era of most people in a room, one or two remotely that you maybe don't care about, that's gone. And now we're entering that third era of saying the experience has to become dramatically more natural. Like, we're actually coming back to, is this as good as taking a flight or as being there? And can it become just significantly more productive with AI, so that, frankly, every space feels like you have an admin assistant, or however you want to put it, an MBA level assistant who can take notes, translate, keep time, take actions for you. So we're entering that third era. It's super exciting. I really hope that we can do another 1 or 2 orders of magnitude growth. We grew from 10,000 to 100,000. We were remembering we did that party in late 2018, right before pandemic hit. We grew another order of 10x. And I think we're just scratching the surface, honestly, in terms of 1 million rooms. There are somewhere between 10 and 20 million meeting rooms just in our current M365 customers. There's 60 to 100 million meeting spaces all of us use. So yeah, I see that specific to rooms, that 1 more and then 2 more orders of magnitude absolutely in the future.
Now, you mentioned AI there.
Yeah.
Well, there's this thing called Copilot. Oh, he joked about it.
Heard of it?
I mean, it's like scattered everywhere. Let's talk about it from the meeting room, because you ruined me yesterday. I've been learning German I'm 300-day streak in on Duolingo, and then you give me a demo yesterday. Yeah, I know. You've been showing me a demo yesterday that can even use my own voice and make my English into hopefully perfect German.
Yeah, first of all, for people who watch my session online, I'm so sorry the volume wasn't turned up on the PC. But this morning in Nicole and Jeff's general session, they showed it again live. It actually works. It's in our, forget which ring, but it's live for us at Microsoft.
Is that public preview or private? Remind me.
I don't remember. I think
we'll put in a caption on the screen. Don't worry, we'll put it in the comments.
We're using it internally at Microsoft, and to me, it's science fiction made real. Where, just like having an interpreter in the meeting. I don't know if you've ever been to, say, Japan, where you talk for a long time, then you pause, somebody else talks. Right. This is so much better, because it's got a 6-second delay. It can, if you choose, make it sound like your own voice. And, you can still speak German. I'll just choose to hear it in English. We did a meeting the other day where, for fun, we said everybody should speak their, I won't say native because it's sort of weird for me, but first language. And so I spoke Russian. My colleague Juan spoke Spanish. Lon spoke Chinese. Shiraz spoke French. I may be leaving one out. And then people in a meeting room consumed it as all English. And it's mind-blowing, to me anyway. And then when you sort of play that forward and you say, you can combine that with the other agents we announced, the meeting facilitator agent, some of the agents that can actually take actions on your behalf. And then you say, what happens when that actually runs on Teams rooms for the use of anyone who walks into that space? Well, that's where I get to saying, wow, it really is like having, as I said, an MBA level translator, note keeper, timekeeper, action taker, whatever the verb is, sort of waiting for you in any space you walk into. On top of that, we add knowing who said what, which means over time we actually can know when you and I walk into the room, and so we can say, hey, Neil and Ilya, how long do you need the room for? Okay, great. I'll let you know when you're getting close to time. Here's your last chat up on the screen. Are there actions on here you wanted to discuss? You want me to take notes? You know, I think when we are so close to that, and in that future, the value of having a brain in every space, I think takes that next step that I hope will help our customers justify the investment to frankly have Teams rooms in every possible meeting space.
Now, Copilot and AI has talked a lot about the end user experience,
Yes.
again, in the meeting room, but there are other bunch of people that sit in darkened rooms that can, I'm talking about IT professionals and the people who have to manage and set this stuff up. What are you doing around AI being able to support the admins and making their life easier?
I'm so glad you brought that up, because even as I talk about the value of deploying systems everywhere, deploying whether it's rooms or phones or premium, I want to make sure that everyone knows we realize how much work that is. This AI era, that's added a bunch of work to IT administrators. I mean, I feel a very small part of that. I'm an admin for my wife's small business in M365. She happens to be a healthcare provider. I need to look at the policies and compare that to kind of the regulations she has to work through. The admins that work in our large enterprise customers, or even medium-sized customers, there's so many new things they have to think about. So one, we realize that, and two, as Nicole said this morning in the general session, we know that frankly, these are the folks that are the heroes at our customer that we need to give superpowers to.
They're always hidden away in a darkened room.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that they have a window they could visit, but so there, I think Copilot and AI can provide those superpowers also to all of us as admins. We talked about a few things in my session yesterday. So we're adding an AI assistant to the Rooms Pro portal. And for me, the really cool thing about that is I no longer have to go out to a browser and do web search when I have a question, and then whatever answer I find, try to map that to my environment. Like, is it talking about the right Rooms version, or like the right, services that I run? So not only can you ask the assistant for knowledge, and that knowledge comes back specific to your environment. So you could say, hey, which of my devices don't have the latest version, plus are having poor quality meetings? But then you can also ask it to take complex actions on your behalf and help you with those. I think that's going to be a huge time saver. And we're bringing similar capabilities to every other admin surface. So I also talked about Copilot in Teams Admin Center. And you can do things like say, hey, help me assign phone numbers to users in this office, or help me set up policies that meet healthcare regulations and HIPAA in the US, for my clinician users and so forth. So we're investing a lot to make sure AI isn't just for users, it's also for our admin friends that frankly make our products real.
Now, you've been an amazing advocate of our multi-camera system.
Yes.
I know you've got it in some of your senior management boardrooms. What's happening with regards to the experience? I mean, have we peaked with regards to the in-room experience? I mean, we can obviously put 12 cameras around the room and screens around the room with our Sightline experience. Yeah. What is Microsoft doing? Again, is this all we've got? We've reached that panacea, or where can we go with regards to experience?
The short answer is I don't think we are near natural, and natural is the North Star. So when I'm sitting in a meeting room, let's say the boardroom where we have one of your systems deployed, I'm probably always going to be keeping one eye on Satya, even if he's not the one talking. I'm also going to be looking for side conversations. If Amy, our CFO, starts whispering, I'm going to think, what does that mean? Well, no, yeah, that's a whole separate talk. So there's a way that I can direct my own attention to consume everything going on in the environment that we just have not yet enabled or perfected, even when we invest in multi-cameras. So one, you need multi-cameras to get all of that visual, audio information. But then two, I think with AI, we can do a much better job of either letting remote participants sort of drive how they consume it, and or knowing who I am and who the people are in the room, provide an experience that sort of approximates what you're like in the room. Having Satya as a feed always visible. Having the active speaker, but adding a view of other side conversations that may happen. And I know we're partnering with you so that your systems start feeding us multiple feeds, and then we can start taking that action on it. There's also a lot more we can do. There's a lot of little things that make the experience more natural. So front row, we removed the distraction of backgrounds on the sitting gallery. Okay. Black is not what most rooms look like. So why can't we take a sample of the meeting room and make that the background for the sitting row in every space, right? So it doesn't, if I'm remote, I don't care what my background looks like to you necessarily, but in the room, it's so much more natural for you to see, it feels like they're sitting at the table with me. We could do that. Also, those video galleries are very two-dimensional today. In fact, they're 100% two-dimensional, right? And without extra hardware, we can't make them truly three-dimensional, but we can add some volume, again, to make our brains feel more at ease, reduce that cognitive load when we're sitting in a room and trying to act like people are there physically with us. So with the technologies we have with Mesh, for example, I think there's a lot that we can do to that UX to make it more natural, more inclusive.
Now, we talked about the high end. Lastly, let's help out some of those people that maybe can't necessarily put 12 cameras around their meeting room and all the rest of it. Bring your own device. There's some great stuff that you announced last year around that, and we heard some cool stuff again this year about the speaker recognition coming in. Are we going to get that on products like Air Media by proxy because you're doing a great job in the cloud?
Yeah, so coming full circle to where I said every space should have a Teams room, and we're counting on IT to do that. I do absolutely realize that there are limits to how many Teams rooms can be deployed by IT superheroes every year, how many you can make every year. And so the reality is, by far, not every space has a Teams room yet, and it's going to be that way for too long, in my opinion. But at the same time, we do think people deserve to have great meetings in every space, and we can do more to help IT shine a light on those, dark spaces, if you will, where they may not know what's going on. So those are the announcements we made for BYOD. One that I think is super important is speaker recognition for BYOD. Knowing who said what is the foundation for everything we talked about with AI and Copilot. And we now have that for BYOD, so anywhere you and I walk in, set up our laptops, Copilot can know what Neil said and what Ilya said, as long as our voices are enrolled. Secondly, a while ago we announced that we can have BYOD spaces show up in Pro Portal just using the Teams client. You plug into a device, you and I and a couple of colleagues plug into the same device, we can say it's a shared device. But there's still an IT step to associate that to a resource account, and it turns out we've identified literally tens of millions of spaces, not nearly as many have been associated. So we're introducing auto association. Again, we can use our intelligence to say, Ilya and Neil were invited to this focus room and they plugged into a thing right at that time. That's probably that focus room. Would you like us to associate it to that account? And of course, once you, as an IT person, do that association, you start getting insights and analytics and maybe the data you need to justify a Teams room for the space. So we're going to keep on pushing to give IT more and more visibility, shine that light everywhere, on every space, on every desk, as we announced. And we're going to make sure that although Teams rooms are the ultimate experience, everyone can have a great meeting in any space.
Cool. Now, lastly, can you give us any secrets? Anything without NDA, anything secret you can tell, or futures, or do you want to tease anybody with something that is coming down the line?
Well, I think I've mentioned a lot already, frankly, probably too much according to my...
And I love the fact you do publish your roadmap. We'll put the link down at the bottom. You do have a public roadmap that people can go and hold you accountable for, and it's got... Well,
and they do hold us. We are doing our next semester reviews this week. I just did some yesterday, and accountability for roadmap came up. No, look, I think in the age of AI, anything I say that's coming like a year from now, I don't know with any certainty. I don't think anyone does, because things are changing so rapidly. I do think a space to keep an eye on is this idea of agents working on your behalf and what that can lead to when you have agents that orchestrate other agents. And at some point, I do think we will look at devices and say, boy, the user interface on those devices becomes sort of Copilot, if you will. Certainly a ton of great ideas around that. I will again emphasize, though, for all of our customers, the key will be getting eyes, ears, and brains into every space so that every space can be instantly productive, useful, and connected to everybody else.
Ilya, thank you so much for joining us.
Always.
Amazing session. Go and, if you haven't seen it, we'll put a link in the captions. We'll put all the links for Ilya's session, the link to the roadmap and all the features. Loads of cool stuff coming from us at Ignite and loads of great stuff coming in that, again, he's scratched the surface. 12 years, only just scratched the surface. Ilya, thank you so much and have a great Ignite.
Thank you.
Thank you again.